Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Weird News and Wacky History. A look behind the scenes at what's been happening throughout the years. I'm your host, Pastor Roland Moss, that old history dude. Ever wonder what it would be like living with a president? Let's find out by taking some time today to go living with Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln had decided to move westward into Kentucky. With experience as a military captain under his belt, Lincoln purchased 400 acres of prime real estate just east of Louisville in 1780. Having been a tanner in the past, Lincoln decided to settle down with his wife and 3 sons and work the land. Problem was the natives who'd long roamed these parts still considered them to be their hunting grounds. Despite the Lincolns' attempt to peacefully coexist, the tribe was determined to drive them away. In May of 1786, 6 years after moving to their new homestead, a shot rang out and Abraham Lincoln fell. Oldest son Josiah sprinted off to find help while 14-year-old Mordecai and 7-year-old Thomas raced to the cabin. Snatching up his father's rifle, Mordecai ran back to find a warrior approaching his father's body with a knife drawn. Taking careful aim, the teenager shot the attacker. Abraham Lincoln lay dead. Abraham Sr. His grandson and namesake would recall that the story of his death by the Indians and of Uncle Mordecai, then 14 years old, killing one of the Indians is a legend more strongly than any other imprinted upon my mind and my memory. Sadly, he wouldn't be the last Lincoln to die of an assassin's bullet. Practicing law with Lincoln was definitely different. The 8th District Circuit Court, where Abraham Lincoln practiced law, was the next best thing to a circus that most Illinois folks ever saw. Prosecution and defense rode into town together, with the presiding judge leading the way. Lawyers took a few days to meet with their clients and witnesses. Trials took place in the local courthouse, usually a moderate-sized rough-hewn log building. Towns with no courthouse used the biggest log cabin in the area, with the judge sitting on the bed and the lawyers at the kitchen table. Lincoln was a crowd favorite and widely considered the top jury attorney in the state. His laid-back, homespun ways won many a jury trial. When that wasn't going to happen, there were other ways to skin a legal cat. Once Lincoln requested an hour's recess to confer with an old lady accused of braining her abusive husband with a piece of firewood. 60 minutes later, Lincoln returned to court, but no one could find the defendant. When questioned, Lincoln said she'd asked where she could get a nice drink of water before court started again. Lincoln said he'd told her that he'd heard that the water in Tennessee was mighty fine. With no one to try, the case was dismissed. In private life, Lincoln was an animal lover. Abraham Lincoln was an avid cat enthusiast. Neighbor Caleb Carmen remembered him talking to cats for half an hour at a time. Treasury employee Monsell B. Field recorded, "I've seen him fondle one for an hour." Lincoln left his dog Fido in Springfield, Illinois when he came to Washington in 1861. Knowing how much he missed his pets, Secretary of State William Seward gave Lincoln 2 small kittens, which he immediately named Dixie and Tabby. He also started adopting strays, and his son soon did so as well. While visiting relatives in Kentucky, Mary wrote her husband that Eddie had developed "your hobby." Lincoln once fed Tabby from the table during a state dinner with the fancy tableware. When accused by Mary of acting shamefully in front of his guests, he replied, "If the gold fork was good enough for former President James Buchanan, I think it's good enough for Tabby." Frustrated with his advisors, the 16th president once quipped, "Dixie is smarter than my whole cabinet. Furthermore, she doesn't talk back." While visiting the front in Virginia just weeks before his death, he was overheard quietly whispering to 3 kittens, "Kitties, thank God you are cats and can't understand this terrible strife that is going on." When is a hat more than a hat? When it belongs to President Lincoln, of course. I say stovepipe hat, and you immediately think Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln slyly used that hat in a number of significant ways. In a day and age when the average man stood 5'6", the 16th president loomed over everyone at 6'4". But by wearing the distinctive headgear, Abe added another 7 to 8 inches to his already impressive stature, making him the noticeable man in any crowd. Early in his political career, Abe wore a rather battered stovepipe hat, which silently but noticeably stressed his frontier roots. But he was savvy enough to buy a brand new hat at the Knox Great Hat and Cap store the day of his landmark Cooper Union speech, knowing that a stylish top hat was a sign of prestige and authority in cosmopolitan New York. He got lots of free publicity from that hat, appearing frequently in newspaper and magazine cartoons wearing it. Then, in August of 1864, its height caused an assassin to miscalculate. The bullet pierced Lincoln's hat, not his head. It also served as a handy file cabinet, allowing Lincoln to keep important documents close at hand when he considered how to proceed. And it was by his side the night he was shot and killed, an inseparable symbol of a brilliant man. That's about all the time we have for this episode of Weird News and Wacky History. Look behind the scenes of what's been happening throughout the years. I'm your host, Pastor Roland Moss, author, historian, and speaker, hoping that all of your history may be just a bit weird.